TFA fam, what is going on? Welcome into the way too early look at the 2022 wide receiver rankings. The content is not stopping here at the Fantasy Authority. Please be sure to hit that subscribe and that like button if you like any of this content. Have a bunch of NFL draft, DFS, props, dynasty stuff still coming for you. But let's jump into our wide receiver rankings for 2022. Kicking things off, Kev, you have it as Justin Jefferson at 1, followed by Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans, and Calvin Ridley at 12. For myself, I have it Adams, Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle at 10 for me as well. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins round things out for me at the wide receiver ones. Kev, just jump into it. Just some overarching thoughts, or quick thoughts here as we look at the way too early 2022 wide receiver ranking.
First things first, let's talk about Justin Jefferson. I have him at 1. And, so some people that might be a little hot because I think people are going to expect, Cooper Kupp, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Justin Jefferson, each of the past 2 seasons has actually gotten better. After his monster, rookie campaign where he had 1,400 total yards and 7 touchdowns. In 2021, he had 1,500 total yards and 9 touchdowns and 19.3 fantasy points per game. He had 2.2 more fantasy points per game this season than he did the year past. And I don't think anything is going to change in 2022. So I think he is in line to even have it maybe possibly even a better year, maybe improve upon, maybe get double-digit touchdowns. And I think you're talking about a monster year from Justin Jefferson. So I think Justin Jefferson definitely should be somebody that you could look at taking in the back half of the first round. Now, listen, Cooper Kupp is the guy that I want to hit on really quickly as well. Cooper Kupp is having a epic, legendary type season. It's somebody that you drafted this year in like the 4th or 5th round because everybody was down on him. Everybody drafted Robert Woods in the 3rd round, and that was a huge mistake. And I love Cooper Kupp. I made a video specifically about Cooper Kupp that I thought he was way undervalued, and I thought he could be a top 5 wide receiver this year. And so, listen, Cooper Kupp, it was fantastic this year. It was well beyond everybody's expectations. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw his 1,800 yards and 15 touchdowns that he had, but he's going to come back down to earth a little bit. He's not going to put up this monster season next year. Years past, we're looking at 2019. He averaged 16.9 fantasy points per game, 13.9 in 2020, but that was because of the drop in touchdowns, but 25.8 this year. It's not going to happen again. I'm not expecting some huge decline. I still think that with Matthew Stafford there, he's going to be the preferred target, but I think he takes a little bit of a step back. And if he's a guy that's going to be drafted as a number 1 or number 2 wide receiver off the board, I'm out. That's just too high for him. And I think that he's going to come back down to earth a little bit in 2022. And the other guy I would touch on really is just Jamar Chase. Listen, I have him pretty high. I believe in Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is the guy that we all thought he was going to be. We had a little preseason stuff, which is hilarious now. So as we look back on all the the preseason stuff, people getting super worried about him, thought that he was going to be terrible and that he was going to be a bust. But he was just an absolute freak of an athlete coming out of college. He had the monster season at LSU, better season than Justin Jefferson did. And so Jamar Chase in his 2nd season, I think he's going to be fantastic. Had that monster game against the Chiefs, week 17. But regardless of that, he still averaged 18.8 fantasy points, 1,400 receiving yards, and 13 receiving touchdowns. But there's nothing to say that that's going to change. He did that on 124 targets as well. I think you can see that target share rise. And so absolutely love Jamar Chase next year. And so he's another guy that I have absolute confidence taking, probably back half of the first, early 2nd round. I think you look to take Jamar Chase there because I think he's just going to continue to get better, which is scary to think.
Yeah, the only reason why I have him a little bit lower, just because, T. Higgins is still there. We haven't really seen too many instances of them this year where both of them eat kind of one or the other. There was that stretch there for a while where Jamar Chase was, almost unstartable. Once T. Higgins came back from injury, he had a couple of those games where he, just wasn't really performing all that well, then just absolutely exploded. I guess really over the last 4 weeks outside of that dud where he was wide receiver 108 in week 15 against Denver, but 25 before that, 19 and a half after that, then obviously just that massive, literally league-winning week in week 17. That's the reason why I have him a little bit lower. Absolutely love him. I really struggled with the wide receiver rankings because I just feel like there's so many question marks and unknowns and what if kind of scenarios. Guys like Tyreek and Diggs, like, have they been quote unquote like figured out? Was it just a down year? Or defense is keying in on them? You know what I mean? Like, I think we saw both those guys struggle a little bit more, be more boom bust than they had been in years past. I was very happy to see. I thought, me having Jalen Waddle at 10 was going to be hot takey. I pull up the rankings. You also have him at wide receiver 10. Just to peel back the curtains, we didn't talk about any of this beforehand. I didn't see his rankings and he didn't see mine. So I was very happy to see that you had Waddle at 10. Dude's been having a great, great rookie season. And that's taken into consideration. Like, they really weren't leaning on him all that much through the first like 6 weeks, because we also have to remember that Tua was injured. Outside of that one game where he had like 13 targets, but he turned that to what was 12 catches for like 60 yards, just something absolutely ridiculous. If we look at weeks 6 to 17, when, like I said, when Tua came back from injury, Jalen Waddle was wide receiver 10 in half PPR scoring. And we also have to realize that this cat with 4.3 speed is not being used to the best of his capabilities. His A dot, again, 4.3 speed, absolute blazer, is 6.4. That is 100th, literally ranks 100th among wide receivers going into week 18. So if they can figure out how to, and I think we started to see it a little bit more toward the last couple of games where they're moving him around the formation, they're getting him involved in different ways. If they can start hitting some deep targets with him, because he only has 10 on the year as well, and that is 59th. If he can, like I said, start getting used a little bit more, how I think a lot of us thought he was going to be used, that could be a big, big year for Jalen Waddle next year. Going over to our wide receiver twos, you have Keenan Allen at 13, followed by Deebo Samuel, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, DeAndre Hopkins, Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, Devonta Smith, and Elijah Moore at 24. I may or may not have gotten a little hot takey with some of mine here in the wide receiver 2 rankings. Drop a comment, let me know what you think. But I have McLaurin at 13, Deebo at 14, Deontay Johnson, Elijah Moore at 16, Jerry Jeudy at 17, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, D-Hop at 21, Allen Robinson, Michael Pittman, and DJ Moore round things out for me at 24. Kev, your thoughts on the early look at the wide receiver 2s going into next season?
For me, this was the hardest position, the hardest section of players to try to figure out for me, because there's so many players here that I feel like I could move up or down. Terry McLaurin, I think if they can add a quarterback here, he's going to go up. Terry McLaurin is a baller, but this offense was so bad this year in a lot of ways. Dealt with a ton of injuries, COVID. I mean, you name it. This team had a lot of issues, but I do think that he's somebody that I could definitely move up. I think he bounces back if they can add a strong quarterback this year. DK Metcalf. I don't know what's going to happen with Russell Wilson. If they don't have Russell Wilson, my thoughts change a little bit about these two, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So we have to figure out how things stack up there. But if Russell Wilson stays, and maybe if the fantasy gods are staring down upon us and they fire Pete Carroll, which is what I've been wishing they would do for the last couple of years, maybe this offense can bounce back, because they certainly have the weapons to do so. And some of these other guys like DJ Moore, if the Panthers go out, let's say they get Deshaun Watson, well, then DJ Moore is rocket ship up the rankings, right? So absolutely. A lot of things can change here with a lot of these players, and we have so much stuff to figure out. So that's the tough part about these wide receivers, is just trying to figure all this stuff out, where everybody's going to land. You have Allen Robinson. I don't. Again, he's a free agent this year. I do not think he's toast. I do not think he's done. I know a lot of people, that's going to be the take with him this offseason. I definitely think that he can still produce. And I think if he can go to a team, Kansas City Chiefs, that desperately need a wide receiver too. I think or even a wide receiver 1 somewhere, depending on where he may wind up. I think that he can be absolutely fine, and I think he's got something that's going to be an absolute screaming value in 2022. So I wanted to get him in there, but there's just so many wide receivers that is tough, and with me not knowing right now where he's going to wind up. Again, he's a guy that I have as a wide receiver 3 right now that I can have as a wide receiver 1, depending on where he lands. And that's not hot whatsoever. He still has it. It was just a bad situation. Terrible offense. Matt Nagy. So many different things.
Yeah, just a couple guys that I want to touch on. Some might see Elijah Moore at 16 and, think I'm just doing that for, the clicks and the outrage. But from week 7 to 13, I know that's been a while. This dude was wide receiver 4 in half PPR scoring in one of the worst offenses in the league. So I think this offseason, I think we see the Jets added that offensive line again. I don't think they do much in terms of the wide receiver room because we still have Corey Davis there. We have not really seen Zach Wilson really be willing to check down to the running backs the way that literally every other backup quarterback in New York did. So I think that could open up some more targets for him. Love, love, love Elijah Moore going into next season. Jerry Jeudy I threw here at 17 because I do believe that the Broncos make a splash at quarterback, and I think it's pretty clear to me anyway that Jerry Jeudy should be the guy. I thought I was going to have DeAndre Hopkins super low. You came in with him at 19. I just want to mention real quick again, same things you said about Allen Robinson. Like, we don't think he's dust. We don't think he's all of a sudden just washed out of nowhere. But we see now what this offense looks like when they have a competent run game and other weapons that to available for Tyler to throw to. D Hop had one game this year with double digit targets, 3 games of over 5 catches, no 100-yard games, and just 2 games over 75 yards. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Christian Kirk. He is a free agent at the end of the year, so whether they re-sign him, if they do something in the draft, potentially tight end, I think could be a spot where they look with, maybe somebody like Jalen Weidemeyer coming into the draft. But for right now, man, D Hop has to fall, and I don't love it, but it kind of it is what it is. I mean, can't get married to the player and to the name. So
I did want to hit on really quickly. I think Zach Wilson over the last couple of weeks, he started to actually look like a competent NFL quarterback. Like he started to show some things here. Now he has not played obviously every game, only 12 games this year, and especially the start of the year, he did not look great. But he's 8th in red zone completion percentage this year and 10th in deep ball completion percentage this year, and really hasn't had many weapons this year. Elijah Moore has missed a lot of time. Corey Davis has missed a lot of time. He is actually second in the league in drop passes with 38 on the year, number 2 among all quarterbacks this year in terms of drop passes. So I think if they can improve, continue to add more weapons through the draft, they're going to have 2 top 10 picks this year. And so for him, I think if they can maybe use one of those on a wide receiver, continue to build that offensive line, continue maybe add a tight end, it's continue and spend a lot of money there. I think this could be an offense that all of a sudden that we're talking about next, in the next couple of years as one of the better offenses in the league if Zach Wilson continue to improve. Because earlier in the year, Zach Wilson did not look like he should have been the number 2 overall draft pick. This is going to be a really fun offseason with the draft, with free agency. So make sure you guys keep it locked in here because we are not going anywhere. We're going to cover all of these things.